Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Hey, podcast listeners, welcome back to Making Data Simple. Today, we've got a special episode lined up. We're speaking with two of the top leaders, the leaders at Anglepoint, a company that has quietly become one of the most respected names in the world of IT and software asset management. In fact, I looked at their website prior to this podcast, and it says, your organization is wasting money on software and cloud. We provide the clear view you need to control your IT spend, right? So joining us are Ron Brill, who's the president and chairman of Anglepoint, one of the founders steering the company's vision. Another founder is Kris Johnson here, and he's the chief product officer who leads the team around the product. We're going to hear from them in just a minute. Anglepoint has grown up from a startup, I think founded in 2009, to a global provider with offices across multiple countries, serving some of the largest enterprises on the planet now. Today, what I plan to do is I'll explore the journey from the founding to business differentiators to building a global team to lessons learned along the way. We'll dig into how they navigate software asset management. And finally, I want to ask them to peer into their crystal ball and where they see the future of software asset management and licensing, asset optimization, wherever we may go. But for all your management or asset management companies saying, why am I not on? Well, that's because Ron, he's on his game and he reached out and said, hey, I want to talk about this. So I'm super excited. Ron, Kris, thank you for being here. Welcome to Making Data Simple.
Thanks, Al. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good to be here.
So why don't I do this? I want to turn it to you guys. Do the introduction any which way you like. I'll start with you, Ron. We go back a little bit. We've had several dinners together. I'd like you to introduce yourself to the listeners. I mean, give us a little bit of a timeline, and then, as I like to say, what brings you to today?
Yeah, thanks, Al. I started my career in 1994 as a CPA, working in one of the big four and doing a financial audit. And early on, I recognized that I didn't want to continue doing financial audit, and I moved to the advisory side of the firm. And then later on into information security, and then to software license compliance. I've done that for a number of years. I was a partner at one of the big four. I was there for 17 years. And then at one point, we kind of, myself and Kris and others kind of recognized we want to be working for the end user organizations and help them manage software assets and cloud assets effectively, and kind of using the knowledge and experience that we have in order to help those end user organizations do the right thing, because most of them want to do the right thing. It's just not easy. We worked on that vision as part of Anglepoint, and we're very, very happy to see how the journey that we've taken and where we are today. Right now, as you mentioned, Anglepoint is a global service provider. We've been recognized by Gartner as leading the Magic Quadrant for the 6th consecutive year in the space. We service 22 of the Fortune 100. From a software asset management managed service perspective, and many, many others as well. I'll mention as well, outside of Anglepoint, I chair the ISO committee for IT asset management standards. That's the committee known as Working Group 21 that owns the ISO 19770 family of standards. We have around 200 members from 27 countries that are involved in that, and we can talk about that some more. I also chair the board of trustees in an organization called the ITAM Forum, which is a global nonprofit that's based in London, that's working to promote the ITAM industry through education, industry events, certifications, and so forth, and also contribute to the FinOps Foundation. So again, great to be here and talk to you.
Fantastic. Where are you originally from, Ron?
I was born in Germany, grew up in Israel, living in the U.S. since over 25 years.
That explains it. I'm trying to figure out where that accent is, and I'm not going to figure it out. That's the
probably a combination of different things.
Fantastic. How about yourself, Kris?
Yeah, Ron and I met working at one of the big four over 20 years ago, helped launch a software license management practice there, and was very active in creating the methodologies for software license compliance, both auditing, and then, as Ron mentioned, turning that around to software asset management to help customers proactively manage and prevent the things that auditors might typically find. And so that Ron and I have been on a journey for quite some time together, and we both left that environment to create what is now Anglepoint, to really kind of turn the consulting model that we knew sort of on its head, where we're putting the client's success criteria first and foremost, even if that means that we work ourselves out of a job, that we are technical problem solvers at our core and want to ensure success for the client, how they define it, not as a consulting firm defines it.
And where do you call home?
I started my career in the Bay Area with Ron, but I reside in my home state of Utah.
So you're the chief product officer. Ron, you're essentially leading the company from a president and chairman perspective. How did the roles come about? When you guys start this foundation, I'm going to talk about the starting or founding Anglepoint here in just a second. But how do the roles fit? I mean, how do you decide, all right, you're going in that direction, I'm going in that direction, we're going to start this company and we're going to be successful? How do you find what role fits your brand?
Good question. You want to stab at it?
I'd say in the early days when it's just a few people around a table, it's everyone's wearing multiple hats. And I think over the years at Anglepoint, Ron and I have worn probably every single hat in the company, including, janitor and mopping the floor when it needs it, that sort of thing. So at least metaphorically speaking. But today, I think we've evolved to a point where we have very defined departments and teams and leadership. And so we're able to, I think, occupy the roles that we're more naturally fitted towards. So in my case, that's making sure that our services are market leading, that trying to see around the corner a little bit to see where the market is heading and making sure that we're prepared for providing next generation services. Obviously, a lot of that has to do today with cloud cost management and AI cost management and so forth, and as well as how we execute our services, making sure that we are tapping into the best technologies and capabilities available to deliver uncommon value to our clients as quickly as possible.
I agree. And, up until 5 years ago, I was the CEO of the company. But I think as we continue to grow, we recognize there's just a lot of demands on time. And where I wanted to continue to focus is on our client relationships and our partner relationships and our industry and thought leadership and so forth. And, it was at that point that we kind of recognized we need to bring in a full-time CEO that will take care of kind of the day-to-day, that will allow me to focus on those things. And I think we kind of overall, I think all kind of grew into the roles that we play today. And I think the role that Kris has plays to his strength and doing a tremendous job there as well. It was more like an evolution over time.
Makes sense. All right. So who can tell me about the aha moment that led to the founding of Anglepoint in 2009? I don't know why I keep wanting to say that. 2009. What gap did you see in the market that motivated you guys to take this leap?
Yeah, I can take it for stab at it, and Kris, feel free to chime in as well. At that time when the company got started, what was happening in the industry for the most part was software compliance audits. That was happening a lot. That was kind of the main kind of motion that organizations were going through. And at that point, I was, and Kris as well, we were at one of the big four and doing these audits. And what we've seen is, A lot of companies are really, really struggling. And B, they were really trying to do the right thing. But again, it was just difficult to do that. And that was kind of where we recognize is that what we really want to do is help those companies that want to do the right thing and want to get on top of this, get there. And it was a kind of combination of disciplines and so forth. And essentially, we were able to leverage the knowledge and experience and expertise that we've gained doing license audits, just use that and help those companies get those practices in place and have a kind of a repeatable capability in-house to be able to control what they're spending, how they're spending, making sure that they don't get out of compliance on the one hand, but that they also take advantage and maximize the value from the investments they already made in software and hardware and cloud. And that was really kind of the turning point. And I think at that point, there weren't a lot of companies that were doing software asset management. We've seen that market continue to grow quite dramatically, over the last kind of 15 years.
Is 2009, was there an inflection point in the market itself, or was it just you guys looked at it and thought, this is a good time for us? It's a little bit of everything. It's a good time to start a business.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it was just a good time from a number of different reasons, kind of where we were in our careers and what the opportunities we saw in the marketplace and so forth. It was just a good time to think about doing that. The opportunity kind of presented itself.
Yeah, I think too, for me, being in the delivery part of the organization, at least in the earlier days, and coming from the Big Four consulting background that Ron and I both came from, I found it in that environment very difficult to deliver success to a client, a global client, in that structure where you've got individual country member firms that have to have inter-firm agreements with each other, different rate cards with each other. There's a lot of internal red tape that gets in the way of just good client service. And so being able to step out of that and just really focus on client outcomes and how they define success was a big thing for me, and it continues to be, in part because our model is one where we have assembled the world's foremost licensing experts on various areas of enterprise licensing. If you look at it from a publisher standpoint, IBM software, Microsoft software, Oracle software, SAP, Salesforce, Broadcom, et cetera, rather than being limited to geographic talent pools where a particular client is located. Our model was remote first, gather the experts and deploy them to a client project, client managed services, so that they're getting the best that the world has to offer, as opposed to their individual geography that their individual member firm has to use.
So you were ahead of COVID before its time. You were working from home when it was maybe unpopular, but now you made it.
Yeah, a decade before, yeah.
So at the beginning, Kris, I'll ask you this question. Did you imagine Anglepoint would one day serve the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies that you mentioned globally? What were your early expectations, and how have things panned out from that standpoint?
Yeah, there was that expectation from the beginning. In fact, our first 2 or 3 clients were among the Fortune 500. So I think that speaks to sort of the level that Ron and I were already operating at, and the client relationships and the reputation that particularly Ron had created for himself, where, hey, if there's a services firm that's providing these capabilities, that's got these individuals behind it, it wasn't too far of a stretch to get some large organizations to essentially take a chance on us, but backed by the confidence that they've worked with us before in different contexts.
Makes sense. Ron, when you did this, what were some of the biggest early challenges in building a consultant asset management firm from the ground up?
So when the team is relatively small at the beginning, you kind of have to do everything, right? So I had to do, as Kris mentioned as well, pretty much everything, right? From delivery to accounting to everything, anything in between, internal and external. So that was a big challenge as well. That was definitely a very interesting time. It taught me personally a lot about the business and so forth. I was, in industry for 17 years by then. Still, there are certain aspects that I had never had exposure to that are involving actually running a company. What does it mean to meet payroll from a cash flow perspective, right, and so forth. Many challenges that I'd never had to deal with in my previous role at the Big Four, and that was a good learning experience as well. I can look at it fondly now. There were some stressful moments at the time. That was definitely a interesting first few years.
Makes sense. I got a silly question for you, because I got it in my mind. If there was one word that characterizes the success or not of this business, what would you think this whole business, if you could encapsulate it into one word, what would you say it is? Bear with me here. Just play a little bit. What would that one word be, do you think?
That's a good question. I would say journey.
Oh, immediately, I think the way you framed it was, what makes it successful or not, and it's people. Yeah. If you've got the right people in the right roles with the right competencies, yes, but also core values, there's an amazing amount of good that you can do together. And that was true from day one, continues to be the case. I
guess the word I was thinking of, I want to see if you agree with this, is trust. Meaning, and I presume that involves people as well, but to me, I'm just speaking out of turn here, so I wanted to get your comments. For an asset management provider or a company like Anglepoint, I would think that for customers, and how you got this started, I was thinking about this in the origins of your business. For them to make a move, even to a startup, whatever, they must trust you, especially with their asset management. You're going to save them money. You're going to give them the real scoop. You're not going to oversell them, blah, blah, blah. It would seem to be trust would be huge in this business. Not like it's huge in every business as it should be, but this is the trust business. Do you guys agree with that? Or you say, well, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people buy from people. People buy professional services from people. It is a people business in the end. And I think we try and live by the mantra that we're only as good as our last outcome that we've delivered. So there's no resting on laurels. There's no anything like that. We earn that relationship with the client every day.
And I very much agree with that word, trust. I think, like I said, trust between us and our clients, trust between ourselves as a team. I think that's a very big element there.
There's more reasons I have that, and I'll ask a few questions on it as we go. But let's pivot to the business itself, what Anglepoint does and how. At IBM, I'm responsible for several pieces of the business. Internally, it's what I've referred to as sales engineering. Externally, I think people just know it as technical sales, which I'll say, and they get it. Essentially, it encompasses technical sales, enablement, a segment we call Tech Zone. That's where we do all our sandboxes, internal and external, and client engineering that does a lot of our pilots, our POCs. But I'm also, where I'm going with this, is responsible for client success. That's taking the community, driving client success management, and the CVA program. As many have heard it, if you listen to IBM, or certainly if you listen to this podcast. This is a program that's designed to help clients optimize their software, understand contracts, reduce security risks, address supportability issues. At the end of the day, though, I simply want to help clients that are over-deployed or under-deployed and make sure they're getting value. Audits, for me, by example, I want to avoid them like the plague, because they do nothing for relationships, and it goes back to that trust we just talked about. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is make sure they're getting value out of their software, plain and simple, infrastructure as well. So for me, asset management in candor is a means to an end. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a very important tool, extremely important, but it's not my area of expertise per se. My area of expertise is that value piece. Your area of expertise is the consulting, the asset management, whatnot. Here's the question. Anglepoint offers everything from, and you may add some here too, asset management services, license management, cloud cost optimization, FinOps, SAM tool services, training. You tell me, but in your words, what makes Anglepoint different from other IT asset management firms or consultancies?
Happy to take first stab at that. Okay. It's a really good question. I think it's a number of things. I think it's the first and foremost, I think it's the people. We, as Kris mentioned, really have taken very much care over the years to really bring the world's top professionals in our space, the top licensing experts and so forth. We have people who really specialize in the software publishers that they work on. Having done audits for that software publisher before and so forth. So we've taken really great care in bringing the best people together. And we still do that today. We believe that's a big differentiator for us. I think another is the focus on client success, and I like how you mentioned that being key. For us, client success is not just the success of the client overall and just the outcome of the project, but also the personal success of the executives that are betting on us and bringing us in and understanding what are they trying to achieve within the organization, what will make them personally successful in their role, what are they looking to do with their peers and so forth, and being able to support them, not just in the immediate project, but more broadly in terms of their vision. And I think what that had translated to is that we've built lasting relationships with a number of executives at our clients that then we would then follow them as they move to different companies and so forth. And that focus on the personal relationship and personal success has been key for us as well. I think another one where we differentiate ourselves is around thought leadership. We really want to be ahead of the curve and lead the curve, and this is reflective in our, reflected in our involvement in ISO and some of those professional organizations, and creating new methodologies and keep innovating and bringing kind of new ideas and so forth. I would say maybe another one would be our focus on kind of having a technology-led service. Recognizing that what we do for organizations, you can do it manually, one time, but really the value to our clients is us helping them create a repeatable process and having the technology and the infrastructure that will allow them to do it internally on a repeatable basis and have ongoing results and insights, and being able to take action for optimization and so forth on an ongoing basis. And you can only achieve that by creating automation and working with the tools and infrastructure that they have in place.
Kris, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I'd echo that. In my role, I have a small research and development department and onshore software engineering department as well. And so very much in the forefront of innovation there. How do we, fuse some of the gaps in the industry technologies that are available to help manage some of these things? And how do we provide a managed services platform that just makes our services more easy to consume, or allows us to be just easier to work with? I think that's comes down to it a lot, that we try and be easy to work with. Like, yes, we are a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, but we're still humans. We're still people that have lives like everyone else. And so even though we've been leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence for years, and more recently, like everyone else, more specifically LLMs, we don't lose that human component, even though we're getting faster times to results by leveraging some of these capabilities. It does not remove the human element and the need to help individuals be successful in their roles.
Let me double click on that if I could for a second. If I'm a customer and we're sitting here and I'm looking at, let's say I'm looking at two ITAM providers, and I said, look, guys, I'm trying to decide between you and somebody else. And they seem like they have good people. They have AI. They're wanting to really help us with our cloud spend. They know what they're doing, and I want to go with somebody I trust. You guys look like you know what you're doing as well. Why you? Why would I, if I'm that customer, why should I say right now, I think we need to go with Anglepoint? As the second part to the question, how did you earn the leadership quadrant in Gartner? Maybe that's directly related.
Yeah, on the first part of that question, why Anglepoint versus maybe some of the other larger, more well-known names? Well, with Anglepoint, we sign up for an outcome. We will deliver an outcome, not just give you deliverables, right? In a statement of work, right? Inevitably, there's deliverables that are going to be produced. There's also activities that are going to be performed, but we take it a step further. And what is the outcome that we are going to achieve in sometimes together, right? Because sometimes outcomes within an organization require some internal change management and so forth that we really need to partner with the client to achieve. And that, I think, is the single biggest difference, that we will partner with our clients to drive real change within their organization, as opposed to, this is the technical thing that is in the contract. Technically, we've delivered that. Now we go away. We're here to stay. We are investing in a long-term managed services relationship where we drive real outcomes to our clients.
I completely echo that as well. It's really about relationships that drive transformative SAM, ITAM, FinOps programs in partnerships over the long term. I think the other differentiator is really what we've achieved in the marketplace and our clients and the references and so forth. We can share some of our success stories, and our clients that are happy to speak with potential prospective clients as well and share the value that we'll be able to bring, particularly when it comes to highly complex environments and very large scale. We've assisted some of the largest and most complex organizations in the world. Organizations have millions of employees and very in hybrid environments across different platforms and architectures and so forth. And I think that is kind of a unique story that we have within that space, being able to get your arms around that type of complexity and distill it to actionable insights that drive cost savings and value and risk mitigation. And that is really kind of a unique story there. And to do that in a way that leaves behind kind of a repeatable technology-led workflow and process that they can leverage for other things. I think the other aspect as well is in our ability to kind of bridge different disciplines. So it's not just licensing, it's the whole software asset management and the lifecycle management. It's how to connect that with related disciplines like FinOps, like sustainable IT, like technology, business management, TBM, and others. And when that is what you need in your organization, we're hard to beat.
How do you keep up your skill on licensing? I want to go back to the Gartner here in a second, but how do you keep up your skill in licensing? I say that's a genuine question, and I think you guys would understand it because it's so tough. I mean, even at IBM, I'm at IBM, and the licensing confuses me. It's almost like I got to go to you guys to get an explanation on the licensing sometimes, and it's in my own house, right? It can be very complex because it changes. There are different versions of it. How do you know that you're right and you're not putting a client in, I don't know, lack of a better word, peril, because it changes, it's difficult. It's almost like it's a science in its own right. How do you keep up with that and keep on top of it?
Yeah, I imagine it's akin to anyone in the legal profession. There's no lawyer that's an expert in all areas of the law. They have individual areas of specialization, and we certainly do that with, to use your example, with IBM software. We have experts in mainframe licensing and distributed licensing within SaaS, even just from a brand standpoint, within WebSphere or what have you. Right? It's to your point, it's changing often enough, and more importantly, the technologies that software is deployed on and through is also changing very rapidly. So we have teams of people that this is their livelihood, is to stay up to the minute on their areas of specialization, much like you would have in the legal profession.
I'm curious now. Kris? What is the toughest licensing approach or practice that you see being used right now? What's the most difficult licensing terms?
Some of them, surprisingly, are somewhat legacy. Bundling or classification is a difficult area. It continues to be difficult. You have a product can come bundled with hundreds of different software packages, and just because you see it deployed in one place doesn't necessarily mean you need a specific license for it. It can be covered by a bundled license that's on a completely different cluster somewhere else in a different country, right? So
that's a good answer.
Clients need help with those things, and there are tools out there that try and help with this, but our approaches are tried and true, orders of magnitude better for our clients that we found.
Ron, back to you. How do you earn that upper right of the top leaderboard of the Gartner assessment? What's the key to success there?
I think if I have to put my finger on one key would be the feedback that our clients provide. It's based on our clients speaking for us. And it's not what we say about ourselves, it's what our clients are saying about us directly to Gartner. Through Gartner Peer Insights, through conversations that Gartner is having with our clients, and they're sharing, with Gartner information about kind of the transformative journeys that we've taken together and the outcomes that we've been able to generate for them from a cost reduction, risk mitigation, and so forth. So first and foremost, it's really just our client success. Who are the clients, and what are they saying about us? Like I mentioned, we serve 22 of the Fortune 500, and we serve many, many others. And we've been able to drive real value, and that demonstrated real impact to the bottom line of these top tier clients year after year. And that's what Gartner is hearing. And I would say that's probably the most important factor. I think other factors will include things like, thought leadership. There are briefings and other things that we share with Gartner, anonymized deliverables and so forth, where they see how far we are in terms of our strategic vision and how that strategic vision is aligned with, Gartner's own vision and, with connecting multiple different disciplines, for the client that kind of match the journey that they're trying to take. On the client side. So thought leadership is definitely another one. And it's delivery capabilities. They look at our expertise in certain areas, whether it's expertise that is in the heads of our consultants or expertise that's been translated to automation we've created. So they look at those capabilities as well. But really, the most important one by far is who our clients are and what do they say about us and what have we done for them? What are we able to actually achieve for them? What outcomes, as Kris highlighted?
Ron, I appreciate that. When you talk to potential clients who are overwhelmed by licensing, cloud costs, compliance risks, what right now tends to resonate most? What problems are clients most eager for you to resolve right now?
Data complexity. They're swimming in data. They can't make sense of it. They've invested in a lot of tools that are supposed to make that easy for them, but they're fighting with tools and tool integrations and can't get to trustworthiness from a asset data standpoint to be able to make data-driven decisions.
If I'm to double click on that, in terms of the problem statement, is this just a result of the enormous amount of data we're dealing with right now? We're dealing with data swamps, and every client that has any analytics and OLTP, transactional processing database together or whatever, all of a sudden you've got a data swamp. You're trying to make sense of all these data lakes, these data stores. You don't know which way's up. Is that the problem, or is it bigger?
It's a little bit more nuanced, I would say, than a classical data problem. Consider things like, you've got let's say you have a CMDB, right, a configuration management database, but you're a large Fortune 500 organization, and so you don't have one CMDB, you have 12. And they're supposed to be federated, but only 3 or 4 of them really are. And so you have no single view of where all of your server operating system instances are, whether they're in the cloud or on premises or what have you. Add on to that, you've got all sorts of serverless functions and containers that aren't in a CMDB, and they're being spun up, for minutes at a time and then being spun down. Well, that incurred a licensing cost during that time, but it's not in a traditional CMDB record. So you have just an immense amount of complexity. That the data complexity is, a direct mirror of infrastructure complexity and the rate of change of that infrastructure. And so that has a lot to do with it, especially, let's take just the CMDB part of it, which is arguably the more simple thing to solve for. Let's say that you can get those CMDBs federated and you've got a single look at your environment. Well, now you've got to align your classification of different CI attributes, configuration item attributes, with how they map to licensing terms. So, for example, you have some IBM software that is paid for in production. You can have a mirror in cold standby, or maybe hot standby, or maybe development. Right? Different products have different licensing constructs and restrictions in this way. Well, how does that map to your classifications of UAT or non-production? Or just standby in your CMDB? You don't know if it's hot or cold, et cetera, right? And that's just one class of software. Even call it just IBM in general, assuming IBM has standardized on what it defines as hot standby, cold standby, non-production, production, and development, UAT, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Well, now compare that to Oracle's definition of that in their licensing terms, and how Microsoft defines that in their licensing terms, and so on and so forth. So there's just a lack of standardization across the board.
So your lens is around asset management licensing and the complexities in data in different terms, everything else like that. I totally get it. Is there anything more, Kris, to say on the unique tech that Anglepoint offers the solution that we should mention before I move on to some other things real quick?
We've invested heavily for quite some time now in a managed services platform we call Elevate. That is the communication hub first and foremost for our managed services delivery. It allows us to massively cut down on email that streamlines, things like note-taking and deliverable distribution. There's a lot of activities and procedures that we need to coordinate with application owners within our clients that actually have hands-on keyboards for different administrative purposes, that we distribute those tasks and those procedures and step-by-step instructions to them through this platform. So it continues to be a hallmark for differentiation for us to drive efficiencies. In addition to sort of the communication hub, we've also built in certain automations of processing data that we collect that again is trying to not replace the need for a software asset management platform, but it is fusing the gaps between where those platforms fall short.
All right, I got it. Hey, I want to ask you one tough question before we move on. From my standpoint, the idea is to avoid an audit, right? We want no audits. We want what I would term and what I challenge my team is guided transparency over where they are, working with our partners to make sure that the clients, are getting value, like I said, whether they're under deployed or over deployed. Sometimes I think it feels like partners or even the business, when I say the business, the industry would like to have an audit because it's easy. It's a spreadsheet exercise, and I think, the value part can be more difficult sometimes. It shouldn't be, but if you're doing an audit and you're looking at compensation and different stuff like that, how you're going to, drive revenue, the audit's pretty simple. We got rules for that. If you're going to go down the value statement, we've got to really outline the product, what it does, the ROI, the use case, on down the story, the journey. How do you look at that from your side? And what is your view on the audit or avoiding the audit, or do you have a whole different lens on it that I wouldn't have, looking at it from like internal to IBM?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you're right to view, an audit as more simple in that it's sort of two-dimensional. You're just comparing what you're entitled to consume and what you're actually consuming. When it comes to the value piece, it adds a third dimension. So not only what are you entitled to use, do you actually need to be using it, and are you consuming it? So we try and bring those populations together so that you're only buying what you need and you're only consuming what you buy. And so if those things should be very equal, or at least within a 5% threshold, right? So that you're not paying money for things that you don't use, and you're not using things you don't need to be using. A lot of organizations have a lot of waste because they've done deployments or they've done configurations of clusters in a certain way that trigger licensing that is unnecessary. If they were to optimize that configuration, they would be consuming or need to consume fewer licenses as a result.
I would add to that as well as artists are really having kind of a single dimension type of exercise where, typically the software vendor is trying to find where the customer may owe more money. So the auditor is only incentivized and instructed to report on that. So they would not highlight areas where the customer is using something they don't really need. It's been deployed by accident and so forth. They will not highlight areas where the customer is under deployed. They will not even report on that for the most part, because they're not, once they see that it's, a particular product is under deployed, they move on to the next product because there's nothing to report there. And it's not focusing on the root causes from an infrastructure and process and so forth. Why that if there is an over deployment, why did it happen, and how can we, work with a client to prevent that and fix the process and fix the tooling and so forth. So it has a positive impact in the sense that it gets attention. But it kind of falls short as far as actually helping the client fix the issues and look at this holistically in terms of the opportunities, not just the risks.
In what condition then does Anglepoint do best? I mean, how are you best monetized? I mean, where you best make most of your revenue? What do you hope to see? So what scenario in the gamut of your mission do you really say, your team has to focus on because this is the livelihood of our business?
Yeah, I would say it's managed services. It's, having a relationship with a client that is long-term. It's not, a single project. It's recurring year over year where they trust us to manage their enterprise software estate, to keep those populations as close together as possible, working within their organization, almost embedded practitioners, if you will, within their organization to create the change that's necessary. And I'll just add that, the first year or two of that type of managed service, right, there's a lot of, putting structure in place and processes in place and improving those processes to get to a better run state. But even in the run state, you have to manage it on an ongoing basis. It's sort of like, if you have security vulnerabilities, sure, you've got a SWAT team that jumps on that security vulnerability and addresses that issue. You can't just, wipe your hands and say, okay, well, I guess we don't have to worry about information security anymore because we fixed that vulnerability. No, it takes a lot of work to prevent future vulnerabilities and to have just good practice so that you don't have those emerging events like that.
So switching to looking forward or the future of ITAM, SAM, cloud licensing, whatever, the industry, I'd say, is moving incredibly fast where relative to software licensing that are changing. Heck, we're going to have agentic licensing, I'm sure here. Well, we already have it. Cloud, SaaS, hybrid IT, you name it. All shifting fast. What trends are you guys watching out for that you will believe will define the next 5 to 10 years for companies like Anglepoint and for the enterprises that are using software at scale?
Yeah, definitely agentic licensing, like you mentioned, using of agentic workflows to manage processes, putting the right guardrails in place for those agentic workflows to perform well. In addition to that, managing the costs of AI. You can think about AI within kind of two different buckets. There's sort of SaaS-based user subscription types of AI, primarily large language models. So think of, ChatGPT that you log into, ChatGPT Enterprise, versus systems-based API to API, all headless. There's no browser. There's no user subscription. The monetization is by some tokenization, tokens per minute or what have you. On the one hand, it lends itself very well to sort of traditional SaaS management approaches and principles. The other is more closely aligned to cloud cost and FinOps management approaches and principles. So definitely AI cost management within those two very distinct branches is where we see probably the next wave of IT asset management really taking place. And there's some that say, well, CIOs aren't super concerned about AI costs right now, and to a degree that may be true. CTOs, on the other hand, that are more focused on applications that are consuming in the other model, like I mentioned, it's just API to API. Consuming of tokens, they're seeing those costs skyrocket. They're needing to manage the cost of an application that they're making available to their end customers. Those costs are being more scrutinized than more the CIO's subscription costs. But just like with the early days of cloud, we will see more scrutiny applied to wasted AI spend as time goes by.
Yeah, and I can add as well. I think with technology becoming a lot more interconnected, as you mentioned, Al. Interconnected technology cannot be managed by disconnected practices, right? So, or in the past, you can have ITAM working separately from FinOps, working separately from vendor management, working separately from infrastructure and operations. In today's world, all these really need to collaborate. So we're going to see a lot more alignment and a lot more collaboration and convergence between different practices that used to operate in somewhat of a silo structure before. I think another aspect would be that the infrastructure itself is a lot more ephemeral now, where, as Kris mentioned before, assets can live for days and hours and minutes and sometimes seconds, and then they disappear. And so the whole kind of cadence of how you go about managing your technology estate needs to catch up with that. Doing a quarterly reconciliation of, assets and licenses and so forth is no longer good enough, right? It needs to be a lot more real time. And that can only be achieved because of the complexity sometimes with AI. Speaking of AI, that's obviously a big trend that's happening. A big part of that is data quality. We talked about data before. I think Gartner predicted that, or actually said that about 60% of all AI initiatives fail because of bad data. 60% of all AI initiatives fail because of bad data. If you think about the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that are being invested in AI initiatives around the world just now, and that's just only accelerating, that's a ridiculous amount of waste. And so focusing on data quality is absolutely key. It's the completeness of the data, it's the accuracy of the data, it's the relevance of the data, the timeliness of it, and so forth. There's a lot of bad data out there. And if you have bad data, all AI is going to do for you is get you bad insights faster, right? And so it's really cleaning up the data and working on strategies that will allow to improve data quality over time is going to be an absolute key. And we play our role as part of that with respect to data around software and cloud and hardware usage and so forth.
Okay, those are the two great answers. Did you have something to add there, Kris?
Yeah, well, I thought maybe it'd be good to give a concrete example of some of the services that we are seeing more of a need for on the AI cost management front when it comes to systems-based token consumption. We had a client that had an AI application that was taking inputs, processing them through a large language model, through Model Garden of Google, and their costs were just escalating. Like, can you come in and help us see how we can reduce our costs here relative to the consumption of this AI model? So this is where we take our resources that don't come from a traditional IT asset management or licensing background, but come from a DevOps professional engineering background. And we were able to look at the end-to-end architecture of this application to find it had inadvertently been over-architected for very low latency, when that degree of low latency was actually not needed for the ultimate success criteria of the application. So we were able to introduce some batching and some caching that reduced their tokenization and their cost by about 64%. And that was just through an architectural change. We built that caching and batching for them, and worked with their engineering team to accomplish that. But that's that's an example of where we see more need in the industry to control AI costs.
Do you guys have time for 3 more quick questions? They'll be fun ones, I promise.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Absolutely.
If you could give one piece of advice to a company that's just beginning to think seriously about software cloud asset management, what would it be?
I would say focus on data quality and on having the right processes and workflows and tooling and so forth that will gradually improve data quality. Because if you have quality data, then getting the insights out of that and the action that comes from the insights and so forth is the relatively the easy part, so to speak. But focusing on getting good data is really kind of a core competence.
Ron, if I could interject, that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, that's why they call you, right? But I'm saying, but is there any way they can do it by themselves legitimately, or do you think you're always going to have some outside help given if you're a big enterprise company with multiple vendors? I mean, you tell me.
Well, when you said do it by themselves, I was thinking about them as an IT asset management practitioner as a department within their organization. They certainly can't do it by themselves within their organization. They have to reach out to their peers, right? If they're a downstream user of data, there needs to be good master data management governance to drive corrections. If data to a downstream system is incorrect or incomplete, right, that accountability needs to be driven back to the source system owner to correct, rather than trying to do transformations downstream, right? That's where things kind of unravel for everybody.
Chris, I would presume all the companies you're talking about would have a practitioner, an asset management practitioner. But again, I am surprised many times where some don't have departments. What's your experience there? Do they have them the way they need them?
It is a mixed bag. Certainly at the Fortune 500 level that we typically operate at, it's more common that they will recognize the need. They'll have been burnt before by either audits or just spiraling costs. So sometimes it's not formalized as a department, and it's a couple of people that don't quite have the structure around them that they need to be successful. Certainly, having outside expertise is going to allow them to navigate away from the pitfalls that most people in that situation fall into. And so, an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of cure.
Do you still recommend, I mean, this may be the softball question for you, but let's say I have the department, I have the practitioners, we've got it pretty well in hand. Why would I need you? And under what conditions would you make that recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, practitioners are going to know what they know. And so sometimes they've only been at one or two organizations in that role. Maybe they've only seen one or two Oracle ULAs in their career. We have seen thousands and thousands of Oracle ULAs. We know what is a good deal, what's not. We know what terms are custom and what is not. We know where they're going to have problems that others have experienced. So it's just the breadth of experience that to tap into. It's a knowledge base to tap into. And LLMs help, but it's no substitute for actual experience.
Yeah, I would echo that exactly. It's can they do it in-house? Probably. Do they want to make the investment to be able to do it correctly in-house? Probably not. It's not a core competency. They have their own business. Why would you want to become an expert, in hundreds of different software publishers? That's not what your business is about. And even if you are able to build that expertise in-house, as Kris mentioned, they're never going to be able to stay up to date because they only see, one contract a year, or we see, hundreds and thousands. And so it's really a question of where do you want to make an investment as a client? What are your core competencies and where you want to just seek outside help?
Yeah, I'll go back to the legal profession analogy, right? Every company's got their general counsel and their teams of in-house lawyers, but they know when to get outside counsel when there's specialization in an area of the law that they're just not up to the minute on.
Yeah, it makes sense. I get where you guys are coming from. Where do you guys think Anglepoint or want Anglepoint to be in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're going to be evolving to be a lot more cross-disciplinary than we are today, because this is where the industry is heading, and this is some of the asks that we're getting from our clients already. And so, whereas in the past they just needed us to have, let's say, IBM licensing expertise, now they also want us to be able to implement that within a technology infrastructure, whether it's ServiceNow or whatnot. They want it converged with cloud financial management, FinOps. They want it converged across multiple environments and architecture. They want it across AI. They want it converged with TBM and cybersecurity and so forth. I think that we're seeing a lot of these disciplines converge, and we're getting those asks already from our clients. So I think that is certainly one area where we're going to continue to evolve and going to have to provide thought leadership in the marketplace as well. I think use of AI. So there's, what we talked about before is how can we leverage ITAM and FinOps to manage AI costs, which we talked about before, but there's the flip side of how can AI capabilities enable us to do what we do better, faster, and cheaper for our clients. I think that'll be another area where there's going to be a lot of folk bringing AI to do what we do better and allowing us as consultants to focus on the value add activities, for example, like working with stakeholders to implement recommendations versus some of the analysis that maybe could be automated in the future.
Thank you guys for sharing your wisdom and learnings with me. Ron, what do you do for fun? when you're not doing all this kind of good stuff?
Spending time with my family is always fun. I got reading. I listen to a lot of books through Audible.
When do you listen to those books? Are you like working out, or what's the timeline?
Yeah,
I'm just curious because I do the same thing. I'm just
yeah, when working out, travel on airplanes, travel quite a bit. So that's a good opportunity to catch up on some books and so forth. Yeah, I try to take every opportunity.
Kris, what about you? What do you do for fun?
Family is definitely a big part of my life as well. I have 5 children, and we love to get outdoors.
Children, 9 between you two. Gosh, you guys are trying. You create the population issue here. Sorry to interrupt. So 5 children, family can continue.
Yeah, we like to get outdoors as much as we can, especially here in Utah, where the mountains are so accessible. So backpacking, hiking, climbing, skiing.
And Ron, where did you say you are right now?
I live in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
So everybody's really different locations, right? When you said that earlier, you really meant it.
Yeah, we're all over the place. Yeah, we're truly virtual.
So you hire for expertise first, yes. Location a distant third, fourth, whatever. It doesn't even matter.
Location is not even a consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not even a consideration.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I got to ask a couple, just at least one more on that. How do you ensure you got the right talent that is really giving you let's just call it like it is, the effort when they're all remote? I guess it goes back to that trust comment that I made earlier. See, that resonates all the way through here. But how do you ensure you're hiring the right people that are giving it their all and are focusing on what they need to be focused in their workplace?
We take what we call our Anglepoint core values very, very seriously. This is a set of principles and sort of maxims that we live by, and it's we hire for that. So when we find someone that we can see based on their prior work experience and our interactions with them in the interview process that they aren't necessarily aligned to those core principles, that's when we know to move on to find the right person that is the right fit for us, and that has a lot to do with just high integrity, personal commitment to excellence, personal commitment to client excellence, and those sorts of things, and being a generally good human, which includes honesty and trust and keeping commitments and all those things.
I think you answered one of the questions that I had. I didn't even get to this question, but I know your core values being people first, relationships, respect, continuous improvement. I was going to ask what actions shape those core values, but I think you did a pretty good job there with that one. What do you think of all these leaders, though, in the industry that are saying, hey, we've got to bring everybody back to the office. That's the way the business world should operate. What's your response or reaction to their point of view?
I think it depends quite a bit on the industry. So professional services where our clients are all over the world. And even if it's a client that's based in one country, our ITAM team is based in a different country, their server administrators are in a different country, there's no real central location for anyone to be to return to work, as it were, when all of your work and your team is remote. Having said that, we do have some internal functions. I'm working out of our office here in Utah. Things like software engineering, that there's need to get that engineering team together in a room to work out solutions that would take longer to come to, or may not even be able to come to without that energy that comes from face-to-face interaction. So, and even in our consulting practices, we do bring our teams together at different periods during the year to have that necessary face-to-face interaction. I liken it to, it's sort of the death zone of Everest, right? You get above a certain elevation where there's so thin oxygen, you can only survive, your body's dying, and so you can only stay there for so long. So you've got getting back face-to-face on a regular basis gets you back into that safe zone.
Good analogy. All right. Thank you guys again for being here. I think this has been good. You can tell by how long it took us to get through some of this. I didn't even get through all my questions. So everybody, Kris Johnson, Ron Brill, Anglepoint, thank you guys for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Al. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
Hey, listeners, hit us on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Until next time, as always, I'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye.